Just to point out that the written text in the Sefer has a typo in it. With number one, Ve'emin should be written chaser without the yud. And when you check other sources, other references, that it does not have a yud there. And that's what we had just been talking about. As we read through the sentence, this really only has a very small number of pauses, but we're going to see that Avram's act of belief, act of faith, again refers to something that's before it, so therefore we're going to pause before it. God is going to stand alone in a position of prominence, and he thought it for him, again looking backwards, and tzedakah as a merit is going to stand on its own. Ve'hamin, Hashem, and this is the end of an aliyah. Vayachshaveha lo tzedakah. And we're going to continue on the next page, page 82. Vayomer, and he said, again with a tzipcha, referencing backwards and pausing slightly afterwards. Number one, God knew that Avram might assume that the promise of children would cancel his right to the land. And he said that each part of the assurance had its own virtue of solidarity as it was presented, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So Avram is now dealing with the second portion of what he was promised. So he was promised progeny, and he was promised the land. So Avram needs now to have the second promise fleshed out for him as well. So this looks back to, well, you got the children, and now I've got to tell you about the rest. Elav, with the stabilizing etnachta, to him. Number two, everything granted to him shall come in proper time and in full extent, as indicated by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So he gets not only a little bit, he's going to get everything. So the etnachta has both the concept of stability and the concept of something that might be elevated above that. And certainly the promise was a full one. Ani, with munach, this is a separating note, pauses before it and leads into and connects to the word after. I, number three, although I do not control although I do control infinity and eternity, at the same time, I supervise every detail and every event everywhere, as shown by the shape of the reading mark. So when God is referring to himself, there's nothing before him, and everything comes out from him. So we have the shape of the Munach saying, nothing before me, and everything flows out from me. Hashem, with the Rivi'i, this note has breadth and pauses, and allows us to sort of appreciate the word in its fullness. God's name, number four, as God of the heavens, my majesty includes the earth as part of infinity. Together they constitute one union, as stressed by the broad meaning of the reading. Here, it's again a way for Avram to pause and reflect on the unity of God and on God's mastery over all creation and the inclusion of all creation in what is part of God. Therefore, God has the right to determine the outcome of anything within it. And that's why we have to sort of sit there and ponder that almost with the breadth of the Rivi'i that's there. Asher, who, with the focusing mafach, this collects what's come from before and brings it more sharply into focus as we go afterwards. Number five, with my powers and specific care over you, I was the one who guarded your safety on many occasions, as denoted by the shape of the reading mark. So this is collecting everything that's happened to Abraham up until now, and moving it forward to Hotzeiticha, with two pashtaot, with two of the same note on the same word. Pashta always appears on the last syllable of the word, but if that is not the accented syllable, then the second one is placed on the syllable that gets the accent. Therefore, this word is emphasized, it gets importance, and there might be some doubleness to its meaning. Number 6, in several instances, quote, I brought you out from dangerous situations, even though you did not realize it fully at the time, as suggested by the double directional shape of the reading word. So here, the doubleness of the note reflects that there were many situations in which Avram needed to be extricated, and God was there for him at each one of those times. And again, this is reflecting the personal nature of God's intervention in Avram's life. Me'ur, with Imunach, this is strongly separated from the previous word and flowing into and connecting to the next word. Number 7, you were constantly under my auspices, since I ordered you to leave, Lech Lecha, from Ur, where your life was endangered, as expressed by the shape of the reading word. So, there's a complete separation from everything that was in Ur, and hence the strong demarcation that the Menach provides. And from then on, Avram is influenced by his relationship to Hashem, Kastim, of Kastim, with the two-part katon. So this is a doubled note, two parts to it, one higher, one lower. You were a target not only of the leadership, but also of most of the inhabitants of Kastim, who saw in you a danger to their views and system of life, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So again, we have both the king and the leadership and the general populace of that place being hostile to Avram. So we get the two-part note on the word, latate, with a dargah. This is a downwards note that it connects to the word after it, and we had said that this often will talk to us about something that is coming from a higher plane going to a lower plane. Forgiving, two separate words, forgiving. Number 9. My purpose was that after your suffering, you would justly qualify for giving to you appropriate rewards, in spite of interfering obstacles, as specified by the shape of the reading word. So we see that the brachot, the blessings that are going to flow down that are going to come to Abraham, are going to literally flow down from Hashem, down the dargah, down the stairs, if you will. Lecha, with a tavir. A tavir is a stabilizing note. It has the dot within the mercha, and this tells us of an element of something that is sheltering or stabilizing, and it has a pause after it. Number 10, for you. All your hardships were actually meant for you, as tests and preparations, nisyonot, which proved your loyalty to heaven and to the inhabitants of earth, as illustrated by the shape of the reading mark. So, while all of these experiences were certainly difficult for Avram, they build up his merit and allow him to feel justified in all of the things that he is going to be given. Et haaretz, with the land, with a mercha, lightly connected to what's come from before, but mostly moving us forward into what's going to go afterwards. Number 11, therefore, besides you being blessed with children, you shall also be awarded with the land, which will suit you and your children, as conveyed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So, the land is connected to Lecha, that it's going to be given to Avram, and it's going to move forward through the generation with Avram's progeny. Et hazot, of this, with the tipcha, this is a backwards focused note, connects to the word before and pauses slightly afterwards. The characteristic of this land is also unique, but the full value of it shall be discovered later, as depicted by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So, while The features have been discussed slightly up until now. So the land of Israel is dependent on, we learn later, the land of Israel is dependent on God's beneficence and God's grace. Lintar ha'aretz tishtamayim. God is going to decide if you're going to get enough rain. It's not loke eretz mitzrayim. It's not like Egypt, that the banks overflow and the water is always there. It's something that you have to be able to read into the way that the land performs God's pleasure or displeasure with you. So that's the unique character of the land. But Avram doesn't know this yet. So he's got some of it, but the note pauses afterwards to say that there's more that we're going to learn about it later. Lirishta, for inheriting it. This has the stabilizing sof pasuk. After many obstructions and interferences, it shall finally become available for inheriting it and keeping it permanently. And again, the concept of inheriting only comes in once you have Avram's full faith in the concept of him having children. And he's promised the land not only for himself, but for future generations. And it's very important that we focus on that point, because that's going to be where we go next. As we read through the sentence, we're going to notice the prolonged pause after God's name, Ani Hashem, and the slight pause between Hotzeticha and Me'ur Kastim. Lech Lecha, again, that phrase is going to stand by itself as you sort of feel the bracha raining down on Abraham. Et ha'aretz hazot, this land, and all that you understand about it, l'rishta, for future generations who are going to understand it more, hence the pause between those two phrases.
Can I just ask about the dagesh and the
The
so
rishta,
is that beged kefet?
This is specifically, this is a feminine possessive. Mareshet ota.
Oh, right.
So
okay.
This is belonging to it, feminine. Okay, so it's two words that are elided together, and that's why you get that dot.
So the top would be beged kefet because it's after the syllable larish.
Yeah, no. This doesn't have the mapik and the hay is exactly.
Is ota.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vayomer elav ani adoshem asher hotzeticha meur kastim la'atet lecha et haaretz hazot l'rishta. We're on page 83.
Right. I'll take the one from you. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't realize we didn't have one.
Oh no, he was here, but I just focusing on what he was saying. I didn't.
That's fine.
No problem. All
That's
good.
fine.
Now we continue on. We are on page 83 by Yomar, and he said, with the stabilizing et nachta, Avram received the assurance of children along with the land, and he said that this made him relaxed and satisfied, as indicated by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So this is a little bit of a different thought than we see in most of the Mefarshim, who question whether Abraham is going to challenge God on the concept of the promise of the land by asking for a sign to say that that's what's going to go on. But we see the stabilizing at Nafta and the reference to something higher, and we've said that Avram is now relaxed and satisfied with both promises. Adoshem, number 2, with the, again, separating munach, which we had said in the previous sentence, says that God is There's nothing before him, and everything that flows out after him, and of course that's the meaning of putting Munach there. Hashem with this time with a katon, with a two-part note. Last time, if you remember, was a revi'i to focus on the depth, and now we're going to see a two-part consideration. So number 2 first. However, Avram considered his own inefficiency and limitations, and he called to the Lord of all events to be granted further guidance to do what is proper and achieve optimal results, as shown by the shape of the reading mark. So there is an argument amongst the Meforshim as Avram asks for a physical sign regarding the land, whether Avram is, again, just asking for guidance, what does he need to do now, or whether Avram is in fact challenging and saying, I trust you as far as the children, but as far as the land goes, I need something more. And we're quite obviously leaning on the Mefarshim who have the first interpretation here. Number 3, the four-letter name of God, 7 Yud, with the two-part katon. Avram said that his actions be well received and correspond with spirit that would derive from God of universality, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. What Avram is going to do is going to exactly match what God's plan for him is. So the first so number 2, Aleph Daled Nun Yud, is a God who has a personal relationship with you, and Yud Kei Vav Kei, Yud Kei Vav Kei has to do with the aspect of judgment. And normally, when you're talking about the aspect of strict judgment, you might feel that this is something that would be harsh or unacceptable or difficult to accept. But we often see with people of perfect faith, with the Avot especially, that we see the two names combined in that whatever God has planned for me, even if it's harsh, I know it's for my best, and I accept it as that, and I will stick with it, and I will learn the terms of it so that I can align my will with what that's going to be. So if it's going to be hard or difficult, I'm not going to take it as hard or difficult. I'm going to take it as that's the way that it's supposed to be, and I'm going to try to learn the lesson of that. So the allegory that's always given is if you're going to get in your car in the morning and your car has difficulty starting, and then you go on the highway and some guy cuts you off and you spill your coffee on your lap, and he rolls down his window next to you and starts yelling at you, how do you respond to that? And quite obviously you're going to be frustrated, and you're going to have a little bit of an angry response. On the other hand, if somebody would have come to you the day before and told you that I'm going to give you $1 million if you respond nicely to a situation, and here's what's going to happen, tomorrow morning you're going to have a bad morning. You're going to have trouble starting your car. You're going to go onto the highway. Some guy's going to cut you off. You're going to spill your coffee in the lap. He's going to respond to you angrily, and you're supposed to respond to him nicely. And if you do that, I'll give you the $1 million. And Avraham is saying, I'm going to take that difficult situation that God in the aspect of judgment, and I'm going to realize that in some way is going to benefit me if I make it through that situation with propriety and grace. And so that's his aligning himself to this name of God with the two parts to it. Even if I think it might be bad, it's going to be good. So that's the katon on Hashem's name. Bama, by what? With a mercha lightly connected to the word before, but mostly moving us forward to the words after it. In doubt of further proceeding, Avram required that he be informed by what criterion he would be able to determine how to distribute any particular part of the land to be most suitable for each of his children, as stressed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So this, as far as all of the mafarshim that I've looked at, is a rather unique take on what this word means. And again, because we have to take it as a paragraph in and of itself, not just something that's connected to the next word, we have to say, okay, well, how am I going to look at my future children and say who gets what? Who gets what part? Who gets the north? Who gets the south? Who gets Yerushalayim? And so on. Eda, I will know with the tipcha, backwards focused and pausing slightly afterwards, so connected to the word before, number 5. He said, what will serve to guide me that I will know how to place a certain child in the proper spot, as denoted by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. And again, echoing the previous word's interpretation, but with more finality to it, with more of a closing aspect to it. And we have a second note. The Gemara says in Megillah 13:2, Avram asked how he would know that if children sin, a flood or an overflow of the sea would not wipe them out. The Zohar says, till Abraham came, Adam and Chava were not established in their place in the other world. Since Abraham also asked for knowledge by his question, by what will I know? Rama Eda, and that's a typo that says a Ra, but it should be Eda. Our Kabbalists say Avram's purpose was to repair the original sin of Adam and Chava, mitigating their position. So Adam and Chava ate from Eitz Da'at, and Avram is asking for Da'at. He's asking to be able to align his knowledge with what knowledge God wants him to have. So here the Zohar is saying that this is a tikkun for Adam and Chava's error, mitigating their position. Noach attempted to accomplish knowledge with wine. So Noach, when he gets out of the ark, and plants a kerem, and Vayeda Noach et asher asalo b'no hakatan. Noach knew, again with the word da'at, knowing, and Noach had mistakenly used his aspect of da'at, and therefore bad things happened to him, and again he failed in achieving the alignment of his search for da'at with what God did, and this is the only thing that Abraham manages to repair. So again, the original generation 10, has to be repaired by generation 20. Number 6, key. Although that looks like that should be just a mercha. It should not be a tavir. It's just a little bit difficult to see in the print. It's just a mercha. Lightly connected to the word from before, mostly moving us forward into the word that goes after. Avram's belief in the promise of God did not change because he was convinced by the promise that he would have children and receive the land, as expressed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So the way that Avram was before, lightly connected to before, isn't going to influence how Avram is going to continue to act afterwards. So even though now he's got an assurance that he's going to get these things, and that it's not dependent on whether he performs properly and continues, Avram still is going to stay the same. Irashena, I will inherit it, with the stabilizing sof pasuk. He said, I will inherit it beyond any doubt, but he was uncertain how to satisfy his beneficiaries. So again, we have the stabilizing aspect here, and that is Avram's belief. But the entire premise of the sentence is Avram's uncertainty on how to act from this point on. So as we read through the sentence with the pauses overemphasized, Avram is going to accept everything. So he's going to say, Vayomar, that's it, I've accepted it. Hashem Elokim, God, whether it's going to be something personal and nice or something that's harsh that I don't quite understand but have to align myself to, that phrase stands out. Bama Eda. If I'm going to pass this on, how am I supposed to know how to do it properly so that the future generations will know what to do? And again, we're leaning very heavily on the concept of Maseh Avot Siman Labanim, that whatever the forefathers did was put there on purpose so that later generations would be able to know how to act in certain circumstances. And as we will see probably in the next class or two classes from now, that this is the basis on which the entire Mitzrayim episode happens and gets resolved. And in fact, the Midrash tells us that this event, this Brit Ben Hatarim, is happening on Tetvav Nisan, is happening on Seder night, or Seder day, at least. The first is happening on first day Pesach. So again, Avram is saying, well, I'm going to act so that my children will know. That's a pretty big responsibility, given that I don't know the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, the great-great-grandchildren. How am I supposed to act so that they'll know what to do? So he's been given a very big responsibility, and even with the power of Nevuah, he needs to be able to satisfy that.
So here the parish is translating Irashena not as Ani Erash, not that I will inherit, but Ani Orish, that I will cause to be inherited, like I will pass on. Is that right? Lehorish instead of Lareshet.
Well, we're giving that meaning to Bama Eda, but the word Irashena is not Orish. It's Irash, that I will inherit it. So Avram is saying with certainty, okay, you told me I'm going to inherit it. I'm going to inherit it. Thank you very much. I understand that. I feel that with all the depth that I have within me.
Mm-hmm.
So Avram has accepted that God said he's going to inherit it. But Bama Eda, that phrase is talking about the other aspect that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
How am I gonna know what to do in order to give them the proper sign so that they can manage it?
Mm-hmm.
But Irashena is going back to that original point of Avram's complete faith in what God told him is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So again, we're coming from the aspect of those Mefarshim that say this is not a question in any way about Avram asking for a sign. This is Avram looking for direction on how to be a proper role model and how to proceed from here, so that later generations will know what they are supposed to do based on what he did. So Bama Eda, that phrase is talking about what you said, and Ki Irashena is saying Avram has again accepted, or Malchut Shamayim, he's accepted that whatever God says is what's going to happen. Vayomar Ad Hashem Elokim Bama Eda Ki Irashena. And we're at the bottom corner of page 83. Pasuk Tet, 15, Genesis 15, sentence 9. Vayomer, and he said, with a munach, so this is a strongly demarcated note, separates itself out from what's come from before, and moves us directly into whatever is going to come afterwards. God readily responded to Avram's doubts about his conduct in problematic situations, and he said that in each instance of receiving, one must also be prepared to give. One cannot exist without the other, as indicated by the shape of the reading mark. So God is going to tell him, this is the way you go forward. From here on in, this is what you do. If you think that you're going to receive something, then you have to also be prepared to give something back at that point. Elav, to him, with a rivi'i. Again, broad-based note, pauses afterwards, focuses strongly on that words and lets us contemplate it for a while. Number 2, whatever he would be prepared to do to someone else shall turn back to him through another